how much overlap do you see between the Mar-a-Lago case and Watergate? Is that an appropriate historical comparison, if you will?
Well, obstruction of justice, that's what we're talking about. That's what we talked about with Nixon. Abuse of power, certainly that's one of the things that we talk about with both Trump and Nixon. But to compare Nixon to Donald Trump, to use a metaphor from these storms that are hitting Washington and elsewhere this afternoon, Nixon is a lightning bug. Donald Trump is a lightning storm that threatens to knock out our power grid. This is a level of magnitude that is way, way, way beyond Nixon. Look at it this way. You know, you were alluding to January 6th and the insurrection that involved that famous, infamous attack on Congress, threatened to a coup d'etat that could have overturned our system of government and, you know, gotten rid of Joe Biden, installed Donald Trump as an unelected president who might have wanted to serve forever. The scale of that is so far beyond Nixon that if we're looking for a historical parallel, much more appropriate parallel would be Jefferson Davis. Jefferson Davis, of course, was never a president of the United States, but he was the president of the illicit Confederate States of America. He tried an insurrection against our American Union for 4 years, failed with his military. But what did Davis say after the end of the Civil War? He was indicted. He was never sent for a long time to prison. And what did he say a few years later? He said, I and the Confederacy did not lose the Civil War. We were cheated out of a victory that we won. Who does that sound like to you?
Yeah, and it's the eeriness there is very compelling. And I was struck by Trump's reference to the 1987 letter that Nixon wrote to him. What can you tell us about that relationship between Trump and Nixon?
Trump sucked up to Nixon for years, involved a lot of things. He wrote him letters aside from this one. This is from Nixon to Trump. Trump wrote Nixon letters saying, "You're a great man and I admire you so much." He took Nixon on his plane on at least one journey to Texas at the end of the 1980s. He kept on trying to get him to buy an apartment in Trump Tower. And essentially, they had, you know, a couple of things in common, which was a pretty cavalier attitude to the use of presidential power and abuse. And I believe that Gerald Ford's pardoning of Richard Nixon was a big message to Donald Trump that the presidency, if you're elected to it, is a free crime zone. Gerald Ford said Nixon had suffered enough. The country could not withstand the ordeal of seeing a former president go to prison. Well, my feeling is that if Ford had insisted on an indictment, and at least Nixon had gotten fingerprinted and was indicted and at least went to trial, I think there's a possibility that Trump would not have been so eager to test the limits of penalties for grabbing too much power and breaking the law.
And Ford may have won that election in '76.
For sure.
The other aspect of this I want to get your thoughts on are the aides, the seemingly ancillary players, but they actually are important figures in how this narrative plays itself out. Like Nixon, these aides face charges. What does the experience from the aides that were around Nixon who got in trouble, went to jail, say about what could potentially happen with Nauta and D'Olivia here in the Trump case?
Well, Trump, as we know, is no student of history. I don't think he's read a history book, maybe ever. Maybe he's seen some documentaries or cartoons. But what I would say is that Trump is very aware of the fact that Nixon didn't go to jail, but look what happened to his chief aides. Haldeman, Ehrlichman, the Attorney General John Mitchell, they all went to jail in Nixon's stead. And so if Trump was looking for a lesson from Nixon, and I think it's more likely that Trump aides who know a lot more about history than he does, including perhaps Roger Stone, who worked for both Trump and Nixon, the lesson to take from the Nixon experience is that if you get scapegoats and fall guys, you can let them take the blame for what you actually have done that's done wrong.